I should also tell you that this guy is fighting one heck of a cold, and so he's doing a little bit under a disadvantage, but in spite of that, he came today.
Thank you, Jerry, and good afternoon to everyone. And thank you for inviting me back. First of all, before I get into the sum and substance of my talk this afternoon, I want to thank you as an organization for the work that you do and the time that you give. It's very important to the people of this city. It is also what makes this city so great. I have really enjoyed my first year as mayor. It has been challenging, trying, frustrating, uplifting, exciting, and just a real honor. It is a kind of job, I think, that in many ways reveals more about me than it does about others. Today, I want to share with you some of my overall impressions about the city and speak specifically about some of the issues that I think merit individual attention. Cincinnati is a strong, vibrant, racially and economically diverse community in many respects. In spite of some of the changes in our downtown areas, some increase in crime, some people leaving, some increase in poverty, some increase in unemployment, and a school system struggling to get back on top, Cincinnati remains one of the most livable cities in this country. Cincinnati has an extraordinary number of good things that it offers to the people of this city. And I'm proud of our city, and I feel fortunate to be able to preside over the political leadership of our town. Let me highlight some topics that I think will provide some specifics of the kinds of things I've been working on to make our city stronger. Obviously, economic development and job creation were primary concerns during last year's presidential campaign. In Cincinnati, although our economy has not been as hard hit as other areas of the nation, we need to continue our efforts to remain economically strong. It's simple for me. If people are working, it necessarily means a better quality of life for all. Being an advocate for business was a primary goal during my first year. And let me share with you some of my accomplishments, I think, in this area. Last spring, I commissioned the Mayor's Small Business Task Force to look at the problems of small businesses, and in particular, minority and women-owned businesses. It is important to know that minorities and women are starting businesses at 4 times the rate of the total population. The task force will come in with its final report later this month, but there are a few significant points which I'd like to discuss. First of all, in the city's Department of Economic Development, a small business division will be created. This division will be staffed by 10 employees devoted exclusively to assisting small businesses in a variety of ways. For the first time, small business people will have a division dedicated to helping them. This division will also cause the city to genuinely focus on small businesses as a key component to improving our economy and creating jobs. 80% of jobs provided in this country come from small businesses, but yet small businesses in Cincinnati have felt excluded from any meaningful help from the city in the past. There is even better news as we look at the economic possibilities for the future of our city. One of the major issues that has always faced small business, and especially minority and female businesses, is the lack of capital. I have worked closely with the Blue Chip Venture Partners, Inc. of McDonald and Gradison and establishing 2 venture capital funds for small businesses. The first fund, established, has approximately $40 million for investment in small businesses. The second capital fund is limited to minority and women, and that fund has approximately $6 million. Both funds are of major significance since Cincinnati was the largest market in the United States without a resident venture capital fund. After many years of effort to get some kind of assistance to minority businesses, it has happened. And I think this means a great deal to the minority community, to women, and to the creation of economic wealth in our city. The investors in this Minority and Female Opportunity Fund include, and I want to name those companies because I think they're worthy to be named: the Central Trust Bank, Cincinnati Bell, Cincinnati Gas and Electric, Fifth Third Bank, McDonald Gradison, Ohio National Life, Procter & Gamble, Provident Bank, Society Bank, and Star Bank, as well as some individuals. I can't tell you how proud and grateful I am to these companies for having to take the lead in an important area. The minority business community development in our city is rather pathetic for a city of our size and such a large African-American population. I think the leadership that these companies have demonstrated will do a great deal to begin to open the doors, the economic doors, of African Americans in this community. And I think that can only be a positive for this city. Also on the economic front, we were able to successfully counter the Kentucky Jobs Development Act and preserve Cincinnati jobs. Through the Ohio Jobs Package, we are not only competitive with Kentucky, but with any other state. This legislation is critical to keeping Cincinnati competitive with cities and states, especially Kentucky, since I believe their legislation was directly targeted at Cincinnati businesses. When Kentucky passed its legislation, initially I got a lot of heat from some of the people around the city, and I'm sure with good intentions. But I refused to yield to that heat, and I'm glad that we have a governor that worked with me. In fact, the governor came down and met in my office with other business leaders to talk about an Ohio response to the Kentucky legislation. And right before the end of the last session of the Ohio legislature, I testified before the Senate Committee on Economic Development, Technology, and Aerospace in Columbus to support the Ohio Jobs Package. The Jobs Development Initiative bills sponsored by Governor Voinovich were consolidated into 3 bills that provide research and development, job creation and export, and infrastructure development, financial incentives to businesses that come to or remain in Ohio. This legislation will go into effect January 15th of this month. This legislation can also, hopefully, be helpful in promoting Fountain Square West development. I believe that time is running out on the city administration to put forth some proposal for council to react to. If we fail to put a deal on the table that is durable by the end of this year, we will no doubt lose Lazarus, and that will be a major disaster for downtown. Another downtown development project is moving forward. The city's commitment to acquire the site for the construction of the Downtown Performing Arts Center was completed in November. And despite a ballot initiative designed to stop the center's development, that was based upon perhaps misunderstanding of the city's contractual obligations to the project, the Arts Center is under construction. The city's Economic Development Department expects the Arts Center to increase economic activity in the heart of downtown. And while I was not on City Council when Council committed itself legally, morally, and otherwise to this project, since my tenure on Council, I have been very much a supporter of the project. I can only see it as being a help to the downtown area. And I was deeply saddened to see some of the division we've had in this community over it. We cannot afford it. All cities are struggling for survival. We're in competition with every city in this nation, and we need to pull together, not pull apart. Certainly new housing in the downtown area is also critical to help to create new life in Cincinnati. The opening of Adams Landing and Gramercy on Garfield are some important steps in getting people living, working, and entertaining in the downtown area. New housing in the downtown area is important to keep and attract a balance of citizens in our community. I think that's very, very important. In December, Council received the Smale Commission review of its progress on implementing the recommendations of the Infrastructure Commission presented to Council in 1987. The major thrust of the 1987 Smale Commission report was to make infrastructure repair and maintenance a city priority. The Commission made 100 recommendations, and of these 100 recommendations, 85 have been acted upon, 6 recommendations are under study, and 9 of those recommendations were rejected by Council. According to the review report, although the city has met most of its goals, the infrastructure still needs millions of dollars worth of improvement. It will be a challenge for the city to maintain its infrastructure, especially now that we are facing reduced revenues. Despite this outlook, the city is faced with many major infrastructure projects that must be completed. The city will have to look for ways to meet this challenge. If you have any ideas, let me know. Last year, I announced the formation of the Mayor's Commission on Children. This commission was established by city ordinance and has been working hard under the leadership of the Right Reverend Herbert Thompson of the Episcopal Diocese of Southern Ohio. This commission is broadly based with some 25 members of varying backgrounds. The need for this commission has been clearly established by the facts and figures which desperately show the suffering of far too many children in our community and throughout this nation. The interim report of this commission revealed that approximately 37% of Cincinnati's children are living in poverty, putting them at high risk of severe health, social, and educational problems. In fact, it's reported to me that there are at least 7,000 children who are simply living on the streets of our city. Related to these problems is the plight of our teens, which now poses some of the most difficult challenges of our times. The problems of teen pregnancy, violence, low academic achievement, and high school dropout rates. The number one cause of death among teens today is teen violence. The one fact that I've tried to stress the most as a public official is the fact that we have as much of an obligation to create a healthy and safe environment for our children outside of school as the school system must do within the school. Our children, both primary school age and adolescents, are in serious trouble. Ignoring these problems will only mean a less than productive future for our society and greater and legal and social problems for us to address unless we are willing to come to grips with those problems now. There is much anger among our youth today who feel let down by families, by society, feel abandoned, feel uncared for. The massive problems of our youth can no longer be ignored. They are our future. And I've worked very closely with the Cincinnati Public Schools. The Superintendent Brandt sits on our Commission on Children, and I have been very much involved with their efforts, particularly around discipline reform. Because I don't think that you can separate the school system from any other part of our community. We're all parts of a whole. And that's important that we understand that. That the City Council can't say the problems that we see in the public schools, the disciplinary problems, the guns, the abusive language by children, that because it's in the schoolhouse, it's not a problem for us as public officials. Because we are responsible for the fundamental environment that these young kids are growing up in. The housing, the drugs on the street, the unemployment. These are all the problems that city government has to address along with other parts of our community. Because these kids who are coming out of hopelessness, who are going to the schools, are bringing all that baggage, child abuse, incest, drugs, witnessing violence, not knowing where their parents are. They are bringing those things to those educational institutions. And now a teacher has to educate them. So with all due respect to the Bingo report and what it's done, and I think it's a masterful piece, if we don't do something about these children from birth on, it won't matter how well reformed the buildings are and clean and how many computers we have, because you're going to be met at that door with children who are hostile, who are angry, who feel abandoned, and many who have no idea who their parents are, victimized and sleeping on the streets. And so we've got to understand that there is a clear connection between the environment, the home, the community, and the schools themselves. Well, let me end by giving you a few updates. As you know, the city has been facing a deficit, or perhaps you have heard that we've been facing a deficit for the fiscal year 93 and 94. The city has implemented a program of downsizing. And an important part of this effort has been offering early retirement incentives to eligible city staff. It appears that our budget can be balanced without layoffs or without any reduction in city services. Also this year, it is likely that our current 9X system of electing city council members will be changed if the voters so decide. And if the voters do not decide, we still may have a change as ordered by the federal courts. What that change will be is difficult for me to say at this point. The council has committed itself to the courts that we will try to put some proposal on the ballot for this May to be voted on by the public. It is conceivable, however, that whatever the change will be, it could radically alter the way political business has been done in this town forever. Don't underestimate the importance of this issue. Lastly, I want to share a few thoughts about Marge Sate, the Klan, the 9X system, the municipal court suit, and race relations in general. I figured I'd wake you up sooner or later. I believe Cincinnati has racial problems, just as all large cities do throughout the United States. We have a city population of African Americans reaching around 38% in number. And many of them do feel disenfranchised and powerless. Too often they feel discriminated against and easily disposable by society. Now, whether these feelings have basis in fact is really irrelevant. What people believe becomes their reality. There are large growing pockets of poverty in this city, and in too many cases there is a disproportionate amount of minorities, children, and single women who are victims of poverty. To the degree that we, as corporate leaders, educators, religious leaders, as well as political leaders, can begin to provide real hope and opportunity. Because it does no good to tell people to have hope and have no opportunity. But to the degree that we can provide real hope and opportunity for this growing underclass, we can save our city from going the way too many other urban cities have, and work to make Cincinnati an even greater place to live. In the case of Marshott, the Klan, racism, or alleged racism, there is no place for racism in our society. The Reverend Billy Graham spoke a few weeks ago on the national program 2020, and he said that racism was the biggest issue facing this country as it moved into the 21st century. In the past 2 months, when the issue of racism surfaced around Ms. Schott and the Klan, I tried to take the responsible position as mayor in condemning all forms of racism, but refusing to allow such a volatile issue to polarize this community. I looked for ways to bring us together. These issues have hurt people in our community, and I have grappled with my own sadness and pain around these matters, because I too have had experience of racial discrimination. I have also had to deal with anonymous threats upon my safety during this time, and have received racial slurs at my office. I could have accommodated the media and used this as an opportunity to get on the talk circuit and lash out over and over again at these issues. Major talk shows in this country called me from all over and tried to bait me to jump on board. But I refused, because Cincinnati didn't deserve the rap it was getting, and I didn't want to do anything to contribute further to the unfair publicity we were receiving. I hope that I have demonstrated responsible leadership by speaking out on the critical issues of the day, while also holding our community together and moving us forward. I'm proud of Cincinnati. I'm proud to be a Cincinnatian. And I'm proud that in spite of all of the national and international negative news that we have received around this world, I am proud of the way we have held together. Cincinnati is a great city, and I believe it will become an even greater community as we open our hearts and minds to one another. Thank you for listening.